Welcome everyone who's joining. We're just waiting for one more board member and then we'll kick off. All right, so welcome everyone. It's nice to see so many attendees to this suddenly Zoom public meeting. So I'm glad everyone was able to adjust for the weather. In a moment, we will be opening the public hearing for the proposed amendments to the regulations restricting the sale of tobacco and vape products in the town of Amherst. Copies of the draft amended regulations and a summary of the proposed changes were emailed to all town tobacco permitted merchants and were posted on the Board of Health's website on the town website. The Amherst Board of Health is a 5-member board that is appointed for a 3-year term. The duty of the board is to promote and protect the public health of the residents of Amherst. The board derives its authority from the Massachusetts legislature. The members are myself, Risha Hess, I'm the chair, Pramila Nair, Betsy Brooks, Jack Jemsek, and Daya Mena. Kiko Malin is the Public Health Director for the town of Amherst. The Public Health Director is an employee of the town. Her duties are to carry out the wishes of the board, assist in the enforcement of our regulations, and manage the day-to-day operations of the Public Health Department. As the purpose of the public hearing is to collect information and opinions, the board will not ask for a vote from the audience, nor will the board itself vote on the proposed regulations at this public hearing. The board will announce the meeting date at which we will discuss and vote on the proposed regulations. That may be the next meeting, but depending on the breadth of the comments we get here today, it may be a different one, so we will announce that. The meeting will be public. However, the board will not provide time for further public testimony at that meeting unless a board member has a specific question to which an audience member can offer some clarification. After this public hearing, the board will accept written testimony for a period of 22 days until February 28th. Letters can be emailed to malink@amherstma.gov or delivered or mailed to the Public Health Department at 70 Boltwood Walk in Amherst, Mass. 01002. If the proposed regulation is passed, the regulation will be posted at the Public Health Department office and online and will be publicized in summary form in the Hampshire Gazette within 30 days of passage. Before we begin taking testimony, and in the interest of time, we ask you to adhere to the following ground rules. First, any person wishing to make comments should use the raise hand function of Zoom. We will do our best to call and promote people in the order in which they raise their hands, but please be patient if we don't see it come up in the right order. Before addressing the Board of Health, please be familiar with the proposed changes to the regulation. When addressing the Board of Health, please state your name, town of residence, and if you'd like, any professional affiliation you have that impacts your comments. 4, please identify the section of the proposed policy that you wish to comment on. 5th, the public comment session is an opportunity to be heard. The board does not respond to comments or ask questions during this hearing. 6, please limit your comments to 3 minutes if possible. At 5 minutes, we will be required to unfortunately cut you off so that other members of the audience will have a chance to speak. This hearing will be recorded and may be posted on the Board of Health meeting website. Please be considerate of the person speaking, whether you agree or disagree with them. I would say refrain from commenting out of turn, but you won't be promoted to panelists, so we won't actually be able to hear you. If somehow there is any verbal disrespect, we will ask you to leave the public hearing. Thank you for your cooperation. Today is Thursday, February 6th. It is 5:05 p.m. May I have a motion to open the public hearing for the proposed amendments to the Town of Amherst Board of Health regulations restricting the sale of tobacco and vape products?
So moved.
Is that motion seconded?
Seconded.
I'll take Premila's second. I think that's the voice I heard. Jack? What can you say aye for opening the meeting?
Aye.
Daya?
Aye.
Premila? I didn't hear.
Sorry, I was muted. Aye.
Betsy,
Aye.
and myself, aye. So the meeting is open. We will start with Kiko summarizing the comments that we have already had submitted through email and walk-in and mail.
Thank you, Risha. So we did receive quite a bit of testimony via email. I think some of the people who submitted testimony are also here in the room. Which is fine. You're still welcome to speak in person. I'm going to just summarize the testimony. I'm not going to read it out word for word. We received 3 pieces of testimony in general support of the regulations. One from Anthony Ishak, who is a co-petitioner in the Brookline for Nicotine-Free Generation policy and is a clinical pharmacist. Anthony supplied general testimony in support of the nicotine-free generation provision as a way to help prevent new people from becoming addicted, but not take away products containing nicotine from those who are already addicted, citing that 90 to 95% of tobacco users start using tobacco when they are underage, according to the CDC. Anthony also talked about high healthcare costs for individuals and for the state. And with nicotine-free generation, the cost to businesses is negligible since it does not impact an existing customer base. Anthony also mentioned that Amherst has a significant population of college-age students who are vulnerable to tobacco companies. And if they are living in a tobacco-free environment, it might be have a positive impact on their peers when they return to home from college. We received documentation or a letter from Mark Gottlieb, who is the executive director of the Public Health Advocacy Institute, affiliated with Northeastern University School of Law. He was advocating that the board include language that creates a nicotine-free generation, mentioned that it would not be difficult to change the regulations slightly to add that piece. Also mentioned that Pelham has it in their regulations, which is our next door neighbor, even though there are no retailers in the town of Pelham, no tobacco retailers. Heidi Garrow, who is an Amherst High School guardian, expressed her concern about the ease of access to vapes for minors at Amherst High School, emphasizing the widespread issue of adolescent vaping. She advocates for stricter enforcement of regulations that limit youth access to vapes and stresses that high school is a major location where vaping occurs. She highlighted the danger of vaping for adolescents and sharing her experience of finding multiple vapes on a student, and urges the board to consider her experience and implement stronger policies to prevent youth access to tobacco and vaping products. Those were the arguments or testimony support provided in support for general restrictions in these amended regulations. We received, let's see, an additional 5 pieces of testimony, some with multiple authors who are critical of the regulations. Jonathan Bowen Leopold, Paul Neff, and Stephen Helfer, of Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights, reported that submitted testimony citing the CDC's report in September that teen smoking and teen e-cigarette use is at a 10-year low. Stating also that most stores selling tobacco products are owned by immigrants of color and that tobacco regulations hurt their businesses, and that alcohol prohibition and war on drugs were failures. Adults should have the right to buy nicotine products. Peter Brennan, who is the executive director of the New England Convenience Store and Energy Marketers Association, submitted testimony citing studies that show that nicotine pouches are significantly less harmful than cigarettes. He advocates harm reduction, that nicotine pouches are a form of harm reduction, and that the FDA places cigarettes at the highest end of harm and nicotine pouches at the lower end if you think about a continuum of nicotine products. He stated also that adult smokers, quote, deserve accessible smoke-free alternatives at the usual purchase points, and if the nicotine pouches are available at regular retail stores, there is the possibility that people who buy cigarettes might also try nicotine pouches. Ben Brooks of Nuria Energy, which is a convenience store at 399 Northampton Street in Amherst, submitted testimony saying that he objects to removing nicotine pouches from stores that allow people under 21 to enter. That removal makes their store less competitive. His objection was not about profiting from tobacco sales necessarily. If young people want nicotine pouches, he stated they can go to other towns and buy them or order them online. Zyn products are the least harmful. Zyn products, which are nicotine pouches, are the least harmful of all nicotine products, he stated, and the FDA just approved marketing of Zyn pouches. Robert Melvin and Jeff Smith of Integrated Harm Reduction, which is part of the R Street Institute, a nonprofit think tank. The R Street Institute has been a committed proponent of limiting the sale of nicotine-related products to those who are 21 years and older, and has supported efforts to raise the age to 21. They support pathways for quitting smoking, including nicotine pouches. They support preventing youth access to these products, but see unintended consequences. They cited the FDA Center for Tobacco Products research that show that nicotine pouches are gaining popularity, but that there is little evidence that these products are of interest to those under age 21. They believe that limiting nicotine pouches to adult-only stores creates a barrier to tobacco consumers who might want to try nicotine products. And if people want to stop smoking and try nicotine pouches instead, why make it so hard for them to buy nicotine? They would have to go to an adult-only store. They also stated that tobacco retailers already have effective state-of-the-art procedures to prohibit underage people from purchasing alcohol, lottery tickets, and tobacco, and the sale of nicotine pouches can also be controlled in these settings. Quote, if the proposed regulation is approved, the financial impact of these vital establishments will be significant. The Amherst community will suffer a public health and financial loss. Unquote. Finally, I think this is the last one. Let me just be sure. Finally, Dr. Paul, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing the name correctly, Rassicott, who's the medical director of Concord Hospital Occupational and Recovery Service in Guilford, New Hampshire. He states he's a native New Englander with 40 years of experience treating people battling addiction. He's concerned about restrictions on nicotine pouches as the biggest impact will be hurt those struggling with addiction while having a minimal impact on youth usage rates. The National Youth Tobacco Survey he cited, conducted last fall, found that 1.8% of youth responding reported using nicotine pouches, and he sees nicotine pouches as a lower risk product, cites recent FDA approval of ZYN, which I'll say the FDA approved ZYN pouches in the 3 milligram and 6 milligram quantities can be more useful than nicotine patches and other cessation strategies. So he values nicotine pouches as a harm reduction tool and should be part of a customized approach for people who are struggling with addiction. And that concludes the summary of the written testimony that we received.
Okay, so we will open it up for comment at this time. If you've raised your hand in the order that Maheen will promote you to panelist, which means you will be visible on screen and will be able to hear you. Kiko will be the timekeeper, so she'll let you know at 3 minutes and then 5 minutes. Thanks. And Heather, you may go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Heather Warner. I grew up in Amherst. In fact, I bought my first cigarette at Augie's at the age of 14. By the time I quit 10 years later, I was a 2-pack-a-day smoker. And, you know, my heart goes out to young people today for whom they are also faced with flavors, with higher nicotine potency, and with synthetic nicotine products like vapes and ZYN pouches and other pouches. Some of these pouches are incredibly high nicotine content. You know, I think a previous, writer talked about 3 and 6 milligrams in the ZYN pouches, but they are commonly found in up to, 40 plus milligrams per pouch. We're seeing an uptick in ZYN use, and I'm really curious to see the 2025 data. But in Hampshire County in 2023, 4.5% of 12th graders were using pouches in their past 30-day use. So these are not a cessation. They're not approved as a cessation device. At the point when they are, that they can be added to that collection. But I think for now, I'm really pleased that the board is looking at putting these in 21 plus only stores. I also am writing today with my hat on as the Hampshire Franklin Tobacco Free Partnership Coordinator. And I forgot to say also that I currently live in Florence. So I really wanted to also support the other aspects of the regulation that you're adopting. I think the fact that Amherst has a cap of 14, that you have methods for retiring permits, when there's been egregious violations or store closures. All of these are, pointing us in that direction of getting us towards that nicotine-free generation. And so I'm here also to just say that I am also in favor of adopting or considering the nicotine-free generation. This was included in the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards model regulation that has gone out to all of the health boards and communities as a recommended strategy. And I think it doesn't replace anything else that's in the regulation. And it may be that you retire the retailers' number of caps before this would ever, in 10 years or 20 years, sort of finally eliminate any tobacco sales. But it does two things. One is it signals to our legislators and to the state that we are looking for this to happen statewide.
You're past 3 minutes. You have a minute
okay,
and a half
thanks.
left. A minute and a half
Okay,
left.
thanks. Yeah, and so it does that, and it also just kind of is kind of like a final statement that this is where we're headed, and eventually in a way that's actually kind of conducive to businesses, because it really doesn't eliminate the sales all at once. So for a lot of reasons, I really appreciate all of you. I appreciate the thought that goes into your regulations. I've always found Amherst to be very thoughtful about how they regulate both tobacco and cannabis. So much appreciation.
And Maheen, you may promote the next person. I believe that's Maureen.
It looks like you can't see me. At least I can't see myself. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. Then I'll read from my notes because I want to keep to the 3-minute limit. First, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm Maureen Busby, Tobacco Prevention Program Manager in the Mystic Valley region. I live in Melrose. While working on tobacco prevention for the past 13 years, I've gained firsthand experience in how the tobacco industry entices young people to try new, trendy, appealing nicotine products. Almost no young people smoke. That's true. That's a good thing. Tobacco control advocates have worked hard for decades to achieve that. Meanwhile, the tobacco industry has also been hard at work, developing new products that don't look, feel, or smell like cigarettes and cigars. 10 years ago, e-cigarettes burst on the scene. Juul Labs captured the lion's share of the market with cool, sleek, discreet vape devices that look just like a flash drive and came in mango, creme brulee, fruit medley, and other flavors. Juul was sued for deceptive advertising aimed at youth, and Massachusetts received $41 million from the multi-state lawsuit. Not to worry, many other manufacturers entered the market, Crave being the biggest seller of disposable vapes around here, but there were many more: Elf Bar, Views, Blue, and others. The state acted courageously and passed the first in nation flavor ban in 2019. Then along came Zyn. Tiny pouches of nicotine salts dissolved by the saliva in your mouth to provide a quick nick hit to the brain. We hear about student weightlifters who pop 1 or 2 pouches into their mouths before they lift because it gives them such a buzz. Zyn pouches come in 3, 6, 9 milligrams in each pouch. Compare that to a pack of cigarettes with 20 to 24 milligrams in the entire pack. More recently, other manufacturers have introduced products like Zone, Blue Giant, Golds, Tyson, Zolt, Bricks, and Free that contain as much as 14, 16, 18, or as Heather said, even 40 milligrams of nicotine in a single pouch. Tins of pouches come with 15 or 20 pouches per tin. Many sell for as little as $5 per tin, compared to $14 for a pack of Marlboros. So as much as 270 milligrams of nicotine for $5, compared to 24 milligrams for a $14 pack of cigarettes. An easy purchase for just about anyone. And with that much nicotine, an even higher potential for addiction. That's the goal. The tobacco industry is losing combustible tobacco customers and working hard to get new ones. Their motto is hook them while they're young and you have a customer for life. By the way, in a recent compliance check in a town that I work in, there were 7 sales to a minor, all of Zyn pouches. So a 19-year-old was able to buy Zyn pouches in 7 stores in one town. Pouches aren't the only product to be concerned about. We now have vapes with an LED screen so you can see how many puffs you have left, just like the range indicator on your car's dash, reminding you to fill up. And the newest vapes come with video games. Yes, play Mario Brothers while you vape. What's next? The tobacco companies are in their labs right now cooking up the next generation of addictive nicotine. They have billions in profits, which they invest in research and marketing, and they can mount robust opposition to tobacco advocates who have worked tirelessly for decades to ensure that nicotine does not continue to kill hundreds of thousands of Americans every year. The death toll is staggering, but so are the healthcare costs that result from smoking-related disease. 6 of my communities decided to protect youth by adopting a forward-thinking policy that we now call NFG, or nicotine-free generation. I encourage you to consider this policy, which will start us on a path to the end of nicotine addiction. End youth use of poisonous products that cause so much harm, all in the name of corporate profit. We've done it before. We banned asbestos, we banned lead paint, and other toxic substances. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. And Maheen, next person up. It looks like that's Peter. When you're ready, please go ahead.
Hey, members of the Board of Health. Thank you for having me. My name is Peter Brennan. I'm the Executive Director of the New England Convenience Store and Energy Marketers Association. Um, Former Amherst resident, 4 glorious years, lived in Pierpont on North Pleasant Street and above the Spirit House, which I hope is still alive and thriving in your community because it's a great store. My testimony is specific to the nicotine pouch regulation. We do not think that these pouches should be restricted to adult-only facilities. We think that would actually be counteractive towards public health. As the FDA has recently ruled in the Zyn decision, people do use these products to quit smoking. If your goal is to have people quit smoking, never start smoking, then that's great and we support that. But you should not unnecessarily harm our retailers by putting nicotine pouches in adult-only facilities. Our retailers are upstanding members of the community. We do regulate the purchase of these products. We understand that these products are 21 plus. That's why they're behind the register. That's why we check IDs. I do not represent, say, tobacco-only stores, vape stores. I hope they have the same compliance record that our stores do. I do know that I can speak for our stores. We are upstanding members of the community. We give a lot back to the community, and we do check IDs. So it would be very harmful to our stores if you were to take these products away and put them in an adult-only facility. And I haven't really heard any public health reasons why that would be a good idea. And I know that a few commenters have mentioned the nicotine-free generation. I did not see that in the regulations being considered tonight. We are opposed to that as well. So I would go on the record as opposing that. But primarily, I would urge you to keep nicotine pouches in our stores where they can be legally sold to adults. We do not sell to youths, anyone under 21. If you have any questions, I will stick around. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you summarized.
Sorry, I think we demoted too quickly. I will just say again, we will not be able to ask or answer any questions at this time. I heard your last thing. All right. Apologies for the demotion. And next up, it looks like it's Kate when you're ready.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Kate Silbaugh. I'm a professor of law, and I focus on the law of adolescence at Boston University. I'm a resident of Brookline, where I co-sponsored Brookline's nicotine-free generation bylaw, and I'm, like a lot of people in this state, a former resident of the town of Amherst during those 4 formative years in my life in the 1980s. It is a wonderful aspect of Massachusetts law that Massachusetts towns are empowered to put more restriction on nicotine products than the state does, to help our own residents in our towns and to pressure the state. And that's what you're doing tonight in considering these bylaws. It is a confirmed and legally sound way to make policy. And in fact, the nicotine-free generation also happens pursuant to that same authority, and it's been completely cleared by the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. So I would like to encourage you to add the nicotine-free generation to your bylaw updates. What it is an emerging endgame strategy for tobacco products. It employs a completely novel legal design. Tobacco does remain the leading cause of preventable death. It kills almost half of its users, and it imposes $600 billion in social costs nationwide each year. And we see two basic choices for regulating the sales of such a lethal product. One is the prohibition that someone mentioned earlier, or the other is a legal age gate, such as 21, which is what we have for retail sales. But the nicotine-free generation law charts a third way. It recognizes the dire harm of tobacco and the serious consequences also of an abrupt prohibition. So nicotine-free generation lays the groundwork for a very, very gradual transition to a sales sunset. So in place of that 21 age gate, nicotine-free generation creates a divide between those who are of age and those who are not when the law passes. And it uses the birth date to divide those two cohorts. And for those of age when the birth date's set, it leaves the existing market always in place. So it delivers no shock whatsoever to the market or to social practices that exist now. It focuses instead on preventing the creation of future demand by preventing sales to everyone who's born after this designated birth date. So its gradualism is really in stark contrast to prohibition's kind of comprehensive ban, which it removed a product from the shelf that people were using. The market for tobacco products exists at the juncture of addiction and adolescence. 95% of users start using nicotine as teenagers. Basically, all of the rest, the other 5%, before the age of 26, which is still adolescence. So those teenagers, the 95%, obtain the products within their own social networks from those who are 21 in that social network. Adolescence and addiction are essential to nicotine's continued existence, with adolescence being the spark and addiction the fuel to long-term sales revenue. The nicotine-free generation law takes addiction seriously by exempting from the regulation's impact those people who are currently dependent on the product. It's been adopted in 14 cities and towns in Massachusetts, introduced in 5 state legislatures, as well as in a number of other countries. So if Amherst joined, you would still be an early part of an important public health movement that is on the roll. Nicotine-free generation finesses the challenges of adolescence and of addiction to provide a hopeful path to a sunset for the leading cause of preventable death. Retailers lose not one single customer. It is consistent with your existing bylaws. It's a rearguard action. It's a prevention action for the future. It operates extremely gradually. And the harm reduction arguments you heard earlier about ZIN do not apply because harm reduction is not a factor where the beneficiaries, those under 21, aren't yet dependent on any product, whether combustibles, vapes, etc., so that they don't need to be transitioned from safer, less safe to safer products. No products is the ideal. So I would encourage you to consider setting up a hearing to add NFG to your regulation. Thank you so much for the time.
Great, thank you. I will just note that while there is a question and answer feature that we were not able to shut off for this meeting, we are not accepting any questions or answers or comments through that medium, and they will be deleted and not taken into consideration. If you would like to speak or send email or mail, that is the way we can accept comments. Maheen, the next person. Looks like Jonathan, when you're ready.
Yeah. Hey, hi, my name is Jonathan. I'm here. My name is Jonathan Bowen Leopold. I'm a Quincy resident, Quincy, Massachusetts, and I'm a part of Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights. So I have some good like peer mental health advocacy work I do as my day job, and I do volunteer for Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights with Stephen Helfer and Paul Neff. And yeah, I mean, I'm openly in mental health recovery myself. I'm a good advocate. Um, I hold honest work. I'm a law-abiding citizen. And I'm in mental health recovery, and I'm very thankful for smoking. I started smoking when I was 12 years old. I had anxiety and hyperventilating, and I was having sort of a tough time. I was a good student, but then I was still in advanced classes, but my grades weren't wonderful. And when I started to smoke, I wasn't hyperventilating as much. It gave me something to look forward to. If I had anxiety, I knew that smoking would help. And, when I quit smoking at 17 and a half, it surprisingly, at first it was great because, like I go to Dunkin' Donuts, everything tasted great, but I'd start getting, some mild panicking and like other anxiety. And by the time I was 18 and a half, my anxiety was so bad that I was jittering. And so I kept with the mental health care and I was doing pretty well in school and I had a good side job. But I went back to smoking and it gave me something to look forward to that's not harming anyone. I don't think even me. I could smoke outdoors, so I wasn't bothering anybody. And, it was very helpful. And I'd go to a party and I wouldn't use hard drugs, but I'd be able to smoke and have a couple beers. And smoking's been a major part of my identity since pretty much all the time I've been growing up. And I just think there's a lot of honest workers, especially who are in recovery. And without smoking, I don't think it would be fair to them. What would they do on a work break that's productive and helps them stay on the job? Um, I think there's all kinds of people, cooks, waitresses, construction workers who count on a smoke break to pay attention and do good work. And, I kept smoking and then not doubting smoking. And I don't really have any of the smoking related illnesses that, people said I would have. So I don't know. I mean, it's easy to blame everything on smoking, but encouraging people to have like a healthier diet and drink their coffee more like black with no sugar, I mean, I think some good physical exercise and, smoking really helps there too to stay awake and alert. So, I mean, that's it. But, I mean, please don't take away our nicotine products or smoking. I think smoking is probably better than nicotine pouches, but there might be students who need nicotine pouches and live in non-smoking dorm rooms, and they like being able to stay alert and awake and to be productive. So, please don't limit these either.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. And the next person. Like another Jonathan.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Winikoff. Thank you, Jonathan, for that testimony. I live in Brookline, Massachusetts, lived in Somerville for years, grew up in Newton, also am a lover of Amherst. So I've been a pediatrician at Mass General Hospital for the past 25 years. I really appreciate that the Amherst Board of Health is taking this look at nicotine-free generation and also Zyn product. Zyn product use and pouch use has doubled in the past year among adolescents. And this is a problem that I see every day in my practice. I treat nicotine addiction. It's very hard to get people off of nicotine products once they start, and then they transition to other products. That's just like what happens with my patients. So I need you to know I've seen thousands of patients over my career, and I've seen this transition in real life. This really happens. It's not just you start with one product and that's it. You transition. So I want to address some of the concerns that Jonathan raised about mental health. I think that's important for the board to hear. Nicotine does have important effects on mental health. It upregulates acetylcholine receptors. It targets the nucleus accumbens, which is the reward center of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. This is the area of the brain that's associated with compulsive use, and reduced interest in non-drug rewards occurs. These reinforcing effects produce both euphoric sensations and also strong dopaminergic responses. And the developing brains of adolescents and young adults are uniquely susceptible at even low levels of nicotine. Some is not okay for the developing brain. That's why so many kids get trapped into nicotine addiction. Nicotine itself is associated with worsening depression, anxiety, ADHD, and suicidal ideation. And for anyone who's worked with youth over the past decade, we've seen a tremendous amount of mental health concerns in our patients, in our populations, in our communities. Nicotine-free generation is a way to protect our youth from some of the effects of nicotine, which include those mental health considerations that I mentioned. So the nicotine itself potentiates reward for other drugs, other addictive substances. These include cocaine, opiates, alcohol, methamphetamine. So by shutting down the nicotine, we also decrease a conjoined reward for additional products. And you often hear that people start with nicotine and then get into trouble with other products. That's one way to defend against other addictions, is through making sure that a gateway drug like nicotine is not available. There's a lot of talk about freedom by people who oppose nicotine-free generation. The main freedom, addiction, takes away free choice. So when we talk about a free choice for adults, people who are addicted as youth do not have free choice. That's the opposite of addiction. And so when we talk about freedoms, nicotine-free generation is actually promotes free choice, and it doesn't actually take nicotine off the market. It allows for government-approved nicotine patches, gums, lozenges in multiple flavors to be still available. This government form of nicotine will always be available. So it's not a prohibition, it's a restriction of the industry intensely concentrated forms of nicotine, including in Crave, Zyn, On. You may have heard Philip Morris's product entry into this marketplace, On, which has higher levels of nicotine than Zyn. I think we're going to see more of On. I'm seeing it in my patients now. And so achieving this at the local level
Dr.
is,
Winikoff, I just want to let you know you have 1 minute left.
oh, that's very helpful. Thank you. Okay, so some people worry that if one town does a nicotine-free generation approach or does a nicotine pouch approach, maybe kids will just go to another town. Well, we studied this with Tobacco 21, which Amherst was an early adopter of. And what we found was that there was a 50% reduction in tobacco use in the population of Needham, even though everyone around Needham didn't do it. Nothing in public health works this well. This is just an extraordinary benefit to the community. And when we think about the 490,000 people who die of smoking and tobacco product use each year, we have to weigh that. And we have to say, look, this is something we can do for our community, even if the people around us don't. But you know what? If you do it, it enhances the chances that those around you will also do it. And it increases chances that the state will do it. And that's exactly what we saw with Tobacco 21. So I think I'm just going to say, in conclusion, tobacco has caused the greatest health detriment of any consumer product in history. We've regulated other products like asbestos and lead in paint. We need to gradually reduce the number of people who are using nicotine in our communities. This is a great way to do it. And just leave you with this fact that tobacco causes more deaths each year in the United States than the number of US soldiers who died in all of World War II. And for
Thank-
those who are patriotic, I think we need to consider that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. And our next person. The screen name is Mr. Care. Oh, we have two. Why don't I have Mr. Care go first, and Colleen and that username, maybe we can note. Great. Screen name, Mr. Care, are you available for comment?
I'm sorry about that. I was muted. I didn't know. Can you hear me?
Great. Yes, thank you.
Again, I apologize. My name is Joe. Again, I apologize for any background noise. I'm working, unfortunately, in a snowstorm, but I am a store owner of Amherst. I do have a tobacco shop there. It is adult only, as well as a 18 plus side for glass, etc., and rolling papers. I am tucked in behind CVS, if you guys are familiar. But yeah, so basically, I just wanted to, come in and introduce myself and also state, I understand your guys' concerns with, tobacco use of underage or younger generations. And to be honest with you, I completely understand and I completely agree. Myself personally, I've actually even was in a coma from nicotine and vape use out of the country. And I completely do not agree with profits for it or anything like that. I do understand I own a business. And I do want to do the right things by owning that business and see what I can do to help with the town of Amherst. There is people that smoke, and we're not, it's going to be very tough to stop that, in my opinion. I work very closely with the owners of Crave and other tobacco owners. I've been across the country. I've been to different countries. I've been to Vegas, and I've met with these owners. I've had, a distribution company where we distribute to tons of other businesses as well. I guess what I'm really saying is tobacco, unfortunately, is getting into the kids' hands, not through us stores, but through the streets. People do not pay the taxes on them because that makes them cheaper. They end up in these college kids' hands, and I see it all the time. And it's not the stores. We check IDs. My store, you have to buzz yourself in. They hit a buzzer. We come to the door. We check their ID right on spot, and then we allow them into even the section of the 21 stuff. But it is sad to see that, unfortunately, it's the tax loophole of them selling them under the tax radar and basically being sold on the streets for much less to people that are not checking IDs or caring about anything like that. And I think that's really what needs to stop. And I think that's really what needs to be tracked down on. And I know they're doing a lot to do so, but that is the difficulty. I don't even think it's the flavors. I don't think it's the enticing. I mean that doesn't help, but in reality, I truly think that we need to get it from the unauthorized people selling it. And if there's anything I can do to help or to, talk with the town of things to work on and, make awareness of things and help in any way, I'm completely here to do so. And again, I appreciate you guys' time and thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Maybe we can get Colleen and Martha's back. All right, Colleen, you are promoted. You're welcome to speak.
You're muted. You have to unmute yourself if you want to speak. We can't hear you.
Okay, I think we'll assume that they are not there. We can demote them. And Colleen, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand again and we will promote you at that point. Ginny, it looks like you are up next. You're welcome to comment.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Ginny Chadwick, and I am a resident of Somerville, Massachusetts. I'm doing my PhD at Brandeis University, and I am a PhD candidate. I have a master's in public health, and my research solely focuses on tobacco control policy. And I look across all 50 states. I actually was on the Columbia, Missouri City Council. And for those of you who don't know, Columbia, Missouri is our largest college town in in Missouri. The University of Missouri is there. We have about 30,000 undergraduate students, and I was on the city council there and was the bill sponsor for the Tobacco 21 policy. And we were one of the first cities in the nation to adopt it. But what I have to say is that it is communities in Massachusetts, like yourself, being in a college town, that lead. And they allow us around the country to adopt policy. So when you guys take the initiative to do something, other college towns notice. And as Dr. Winikoff mentioned, you guys were one of the first to adopt Tobacco 21, and we saw it. So I want to tell you, boards of health matter, and not just in Massachusetts. They matter far and wide. So I am also the co-author of the Tobacco 21 model policy and the decriminalization of tobacco products. And I will email both of those documents to you since you're not taking comment in the chat box. But so I want to address a couple of things in your considerations of regulations on the policy summary. So I'm going to go with point 2, tobacco retail education. I noted that you were taking out the tobacco quiz for retailers. Tobacco education is a part of the model, and so I'm hoping that somewhere in some way you're adding that in. I couldn't find it as reading the draft new language. Also, you're removing the fine structure. You're changing it to eliminate the suspension on the first violation, point 3. And there might be a good rationale for that. And I know that you're not taking comments back, but like you're not doing Q&A with the speakers, but just to think about why, like, suspension upon first violation is a best practice, even if it's for 3 days. So I would recommend considering making sure that you have some form of suspension upon violation, even on that first violation. You are also removing the age of the clerk. You're changing it, and I think that's point 7. I think that currently it was saying that the age needed to be 21. We didn't put an age in the model, but I know that there's some research to say that those who are 16 years of age and selling are more likely to sell to an underage retailer or to make an underage sale. And so if you're totally removing the age, I would consider at least putting in 18 and not just eliminating the age of the clerk. And then you have a distance restriction, and you have it at 1,000 feet. And there's some really good research by Doug Luke out of the Wash U that says that 2,000 feet is really the most advantageous at reducing retailers and sales. So I would, I know that a lot of this comes from the Massachusetts model policy language, but if you take like a 1,000-foot view on what other documents say, I just want to consider and encourage those things. On the other topics that I didn't bring up point-wise, as far as the cap on retailers, the expansion of flavor definition, the pouches to adult-only stores, those are all things that we know benefit public health. And as Board of Health members making votes on public health policy, I want to recognize and encourage you to support those restrictions. I know that you heard testimony at first from
And you
letters.
have 1 minute left.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That were provided for nicotine pouches at 1.8%. That's a 100% increase. What I do want to point out is nicotine-free generation. So in your 5 regulation C1 age 21, I would encourage you to consider nicotine-free generation. As I said, people are encouraged and supported to lead in policy when places in Massachusetts take the effort. So your consideration of nicotine-free generation policy will go far beyond just your local community, but will have a huge impact, and especially on the college population. We know that Tobacco 21 was hugely effective on college use. I'm told by students that they have party favors of nicotine pouches, like bowls of Zyn for party favors that they're handing out by college students. So I can't imagine what's happening in my college town is different than yours.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next person. Looks like Ken, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I'm Ken Elstein. I'm a member of the Board of Health of the town of Belchertown, and I'm also a past president of the Hampshire County Select Boards Association at a time when Amherst had a select board. I want to expand on Dr. Winkoff's comments earlier. We approved both the recommended restrictions on pouches as well as the recommended nicotine-free generation with a birth date set at January 1st, 2004 in Belchertown. I'm glad to say that the town of Pelham joined us in support and recommended that, quote, neighboring towns also endorse nicotine-free generation. And the reason for this is, in addition to protecting our own people, we have the responsibility as members of the Board of Health primarily to provide for the health of the people in our towns, and especially of the young people. If you'll bear with me, there are no real borders between towns. I mean, when those of us in town government, we pay attention to boundaries. But in real life, in ordinary living, it doesn't happen. I live 2 miles closer to the Amherst Town Hall than I live to the Belchertown Town Hall. I was married in the Amherst Women's Club across the street from Emily Dickinson's house. My wife worked for decades in Amherst. Sienna graduated from Amherst Regional Middle School and Amherst Regional High School. My wife was president for several years of the Garden Club of Amherst. We've been members of the Amherst Cinema since they first opened. We go to the Jones Library. I mean, I could go on with these things, but the point is there are no borders in real life. And for us to pass nicotine-free generation here in Belchertown, the kids can go across the border. And so it's important that we have a consistent policy. And the other part of it, of course, is that as happened with raising the age of from 18 to 21, it took hundreds of the 351 municipalities in Massachusetts to approve it before the legislature got its act in order and finally passed it statewide. And we would like to do the same thing here. So we need regional support for the legislators out here in Western Massachusetts to join the dozen or so already in the eastern part of the state that have enacted nicotine-free generation. I do want to say one of the previous speakers talked about the great job that the nicotine dealers do. We had a spot check done, which I think you must be doing too on a regular basis. We had it in November. Out of the 10 nicotine dealers in Belchtown, 10 out of the 10 had a violation of the state regulations, which we duplicate in our regulations as well. 10 out of 10 failures is not a perfect score by any means. It's perfect in the opposite direction.
Ken, you
And
have 1 minute left.
Okay, thank you very much. One other thing, or two other things. One, when I was in my 60s, I met the first of my 4 grandchildren, and I'm very fortunate to have that. If you vote for nicotine-free generation, you will enable teens now today to not die when they're in their 40s or 50s, but they also will have the opportunity to meet their grandchildren and live longer and happier lives. I would encourage you not to delay. For every month you delay enacting these regulations, more and more kids are vulnerable, and they are our first responsibility. Thank you very much, and I hope we can work together.
Thank you for those comments. And the next person. It looks like Mark, when you're ready, welcome your comments.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's Mark Gottlieb. I'm a resident of Cambridge, and I'm the executive director of the Public Health Advocacy Institute at Northeastern University School of Law, where I'm on the faculty and teach public health advocacy. I wanted to address the any legal questions regarding the nicotine-free generation proposal, which is not, I certainly note, on the proposed amendments to the tobacco regulation. I hope that might change at some point. But I know there have been concerns about whether this is a legally viable strategy. And we heard from Professor Silbaugh, who was one of the sponsors in Brookline, which was the first jurisdiction in the world, actually, to adopt this nicotine-free generation policy. And the town of Brookline was sued by a number of retailers in the town. My organization had agreed to defend any municipality in Massachusetts that adopted this policy. And so we pro bono represented the town of Brookline, and the case was dismissed. It was appealed. The Supreme Judicial Court heard the appeal and then unanimously dismissed the action. I think all of the legal issues that could be raised in opposition to this policy have been resolved in Massachusetts. But if any were to arise, my organization, and we have a very busy and active litigation division, would pro bono represent Amherst in this matter. Just wanted to make that clear. You know, this is, and I mentioned that, Brookline was the first in the world to do this, and now we have 14 communities in Massachusetts that have adopted this policy. And there is, last month a statewide bill was filed, and we have really an historic opportunity in Massachusetts right now, which has to start at the local level, to create this new pathway towards prevention of nicotine addiction for the next generation and beyond, which is just mind-blowing and would have a extraordinary impact on public health everywhere it's adopted, but perhaps throughout this region and beyond. Um, uh, and One of the things that came up, and I think Professor Silbal gave a great explanation of what the policy is, as others have. But one of the things that came up is that it's the retailers aren't necessarily providing nicotine products to the underage purchasers, and that is absolutely true. The vast majority comes from their older peers who are 21 years old and may be able to legally be sold tobacco products and then provide those to high school kids, to younger kids. And of course, this happens on college campuses as well. Um, but with the nicotine-free generation policy, every year the gap between those who may be sold tobacco products and those who may not grows, so that in 5 years it's only 26-year-olds who would be able to be sold tobacco products. And it becomes far less likely that they will be in the peer group of younger people who were under 21 and being able to provide that. And I think that would go a great deal, make a great deal of a difference in terms of prevention.
Mark, you
Uh,
have just under 1 minute left.
Under 1 minute. So Section 5, C, Section 1, subsection 1. It's such a simple change, and I did send a marked up copy of this to just change under 21 years of age to born on or after, say, July 1, 2005. And then on section the same section, but subsection 4, change younger than 21 years of age on the signage requirements to born on or after July 1, 2005. It's a real easy change to add this. I think would be tremendously significant, particularly in Amherst, where we have the college population. And it would really do a great deal of good for your neighbors as well. I hope you consider doing it this round. If not, I sure hope that it would be adopted before the next crop of students arrive in August.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And our next person. It looks like Cheryl. We're ready for whenever you are able to speak.
Thanks very much, and good evening, all. My name is Cheryl Sabara. I am the Executive Director and Senior Staff Attorney for the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards. I have been working in the field of public health law, more particularly tobacco control law, for the past 30 years. And I want to start briefly by putting on the record that I enthusiastically support the nicotine-free generation policy. I would add that smoking is not an adult choice. You can just ask my husband, who has been addicted to tobacco for too many years to mention. He is strongly policy, and members of my family have spoken in support of it, partly because of his addiction. Now I want to go to, I'd like to respond to testimony that was submitted in writing. And I don't know why I have that up, but you don't need to see me anyway. Okay, so I believe it was one of the written testimony that was submitted claimed that there was some study that indicated that those under 21 really had no interest in oral nicotine pouches. And I don't know who created that study, but I can say matter of factly that that is not true in Massachusetts. If you look at the stats in Massachusetts, you will see that every use of smokeless tobacco products went from 3.1% to 7% in 2 years, and current use went from 1% to 3.2% in that same time period. That is more, much more than 100% increase in youth use. And I'm not talking about young adults, I'm talking about adolescents here. I also heard testimony in person and written testimony claiming that this was really, it's less harmful, it's a harm reduction, and we really shouldn't be taking that away. And they looked at the fact that the FDA authorized Zyn. However, if you look at that authorization, the authorization specifically says that it does not allow the company, and it's Philip Morris is the company in question here, to make reduced risk claims. FDA authorized the use for 3 milligram and 6 milligram products. And as you've heard tonight, some of these products have a significantly higher amount of nicotine in them. I would suggest that there is another option here if the board is not interested or does not want to ban the sale of pouches in stores that are not adult-only retail tobacco stores. They could consider banning the sale of products that have more than 3 or 6 milligrams of nicotine. That's another option that the board has. I'd just like to address a previous speaker who was concerned about taking out suspension on the first offense. And just to clarify that that's because of preemption issues in the DPH regulation. I think that's all I want to say. I support all of the changes that you are considering and would strongly suggest that oral nicotine pouches are indeed being used by youth. We are seeing more and more scientific evidence that these products are not only not harm reduction products, but they're being used in addition to using combustible cigarettes. We're seeing a lot of dual use of these products. So the thought that somehow these products are just are going to save the world from tobacco addiction is just not true. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your comments. And our next speaker. Colleen, we'll try again for your comments. You're on mute if you're speaking.
Oh, good. I think, am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, my name is Colleen Durocher. I'm a Belchertown resident. I'm a Belchertown Board of Health member. I went to school at UMass Amherst and I became a nurse. As a result, I'm a retired nurse now. I joined the Board of Health with the hopes of helping people with their health, promotion of health. We lived through COVID and I was part of that, and that was great. And other things that have come up, but this is I was the most enthusiastic with the nicotine-free generation bylaw that we passed. That was great. I feel like we really. I'm hoping now we were the 13th town or whatever in Massachusetts, and now we have 14, and it's going to happen in other towns, and eventually it'll happen in the state, and eventually, like the 2021 nicotine 21 smoker law that happened because it started in Massachusetts with one town, and it snowballed to all the towns in the state and then the country. So I'm hoping that this will snowball similarly to the whole country. This is one of the things I'm most proud of, that I was able to be part of this. I think that's all. Nicotine pouches. I mean, all the things you're talking about with your considerations. I think I'm in support of all of them. The pouches being a big part of it. That's all I have to say. So thank you for hearing me.
Thank you for your comments. I do not see any more hands in the attendees. We'll give a few more seconds to see if anyone else would like to make a comment.
And while we're doing that, I just want to acknowledge that we forgot to introduce Maheen Ahmed earlier. She's our public health program assistant, so part of the staff here at the health department in Amherst. And thank you, Maheen, for your good job.
Yes, apologies for not introducing you to the attendees. I thought I saw one more hand. Maybe it went away.
I think it went away.
Okay, we'll wait a few more minutes or a few more. We promoted Cheryl again. You're on mute.
I think you promoted me by accident. Sorry.
Okay. Last chance if anyone else would like to comment. Oh, we have a hand. All right, Teresa, when you're ready, you'll need to unmute. If you're speaking, we can't. Oh, there you go.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
I just wanted to say I've listened to the meeting and I don't know, as a nicotine user, I don't think it's fair to try to ban. There's a lot of regulations on smoking and such, but you're not banning alcohol, you're not banning marijuana. Why so hard are you going after the tobacco and not allowing people to purchase it? That's all. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. Everybody there seems to say, oh, ban it, ban it, ban it. And that's just not America. You're banning nicotine because of all your nicotine advocates. But what about the marijuana? What about the alcohol? What about the food industry? That's all. Just wanted to put my 2 cents in. Thank you.
And we're glad you did. Thank you. We'll wait a few more pauses to see if there's any additional comments. Okay, if not, may I have a motion to close? Well, I guess I can just remind that there are 28 day or 22 days. Sorry, I'll have to look back. Kiko, if you know off the top of your head, you
Yeah,
can
22 days until February
22
28th.
days.
Mm-hmm.
In that we will continue to accept comments in written emailed form. And you're welcome to add to whatever has been said here today. And our next meeting is in March, but we don't have the agenda yet, and we will make public if that is going to be a discussion and or vote on these regulations. If nothing further, can I get a motion to close the meeting?
I move to close the meeting.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Premila,
Aye.
Dia? I saw you say aye. I didn't actually hear it. That's fine. Jack
Aye.
and Betsy.
Aye.
All right. So with that, we will close the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. Really appreciate your feedback.